the new escalations in the last 24 hours. The United States attacked four bridges in Iran and railways, and the attack is getting deeper inside the Iranian territory somehow. But all these attacks that I've just mentioned are in the southern part of Iran and the western part. And the Iranian attack was basically on all of GCC countries except Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia didn't get any sort of attack so far, or it wasn't mentioned in the news. And the one of the targets last night was the Bahrain Petroleum Company, Babco as they call it, was hit with one of these missiles. When the war started, Ambassador, to the United States and Israel together attacking. Then you see right now the current phase of the war is the United States using GCC countries attacking Iran, and Iranian response is to GCC countries. Israel is not part of that. Lebanon is not part of that. The situation is somehow, you know, they try to stabilize the situation. We had a new attack in Yemen, Saudi Arabia attacking Yemen, and many people were questioning what was that? What was the main reason for Saudi Arabia to go that far? But focusing on, I'm gonna ask other questions, but focusing on the current situation with the war, do you think that the path of talks and diplomacy, those things are gone, or there's still there is some sort of chance to have some sort of sanity with what's going on between the two sides?
Oh, I think diplomacy is dead in this context. It was strangled at birth by misunderstandings, by the failure of the envoys on the U.S. side to act professionally, to try to clarify those terms that were not clear. And so we've had a complete collapse of the so-called Memorandum of Understanding. I think it's important to note, by the way, that the Memorandum of Understanding concept is one in which an agreement is only tentative. In this case, a tentative agreement to a framework for negotiations. This is about as remote from a real understanding as you can get. And in the American usage, a memorandum of understanding has no legal force. It is not a legal document. It is, at best, a moral commitment. But in the Iran-US context, of course, this is diplomacy. And in diplomacy, your word must be your bond. So you must, if you make a promise, whether it's legally enforceable or not, you have an ethical responsibility to carry it out. In this case, the United States attempted basically to revise all of the terms of the MOU in practice, and while charging Iran, when it responded to this, by charging Iran with violations of the MOU. What we're seeing now is an escalatory cycle. Iran will definitely escalate in response to the extension of American bombing to civilian infrastructure. At the moment, as you indicated, Iran is counterattacking bases, US bases, and some installations. You mentioned Babco, the Bahrain oil company, in the region in response to, as reprisal for the American attacks. As you note, it has apparently not attacked Saudi Arabia. And there are two reasons for this. One is that the Ansar Allah, the Houthis in Yemen, have been provoked by Saudi Arabia into attacks on the Saudis, beginning with an attack on the airport at Abha, a mountain area which was part of Yemen until the 1930s, when it was conquered by Saudi Arabia. A very distinctive, colorful area. This was not followed by a Saudi reprisal. So it seems that the Saudis must have recognized that the attack on the Sana'a airport that they conducted was a mistake. Basically, they had 4 years of ceasefire, truce with Yemen. They broke that. And now the Ansar Allah, the Houthis who control Sana'a and much of Yemen in the north, are have been asked by Iran to blockade the Red Sea again. And in a way, what we're seeing, Nima, I think from in terms of the American involvement in this, is a parallel, a reenactment of the earlier American effort against Ansar Allah, the Houthis, which went on for almost a year, cost $1 billion plus, achieved absolutely nothing. And in the end, the American fleet sailed away and declared victory without achieving it, and washed its hands of the whole affair. And I think that is probably where this U.S.-Iranian war is going to end, because I don't see any way in which either side can dislodge the other. Iran can't get rid of the American Navy, and the bases in the bases in Jordan, the tankers stashed in Israel, and so on. Iran has limitations. The United States can't just dislodge Iran from the Strait of Hormuz because half of the Strait of Hormuz is on the Iranian side of the sea. So nobody can win militarily. That's been obvious from the beginning. Diplomacy has failed. This leaves Donald Trump, who last night, in a remarkably incoherent speech, really travesty, an explosion of nonsense that I think will do him more harm than good, as with the American public. The only mention he made of Iran was, quote, "We are winning big with Iran," which is, of course, complete nonsense. So both sides are stuck. This is going toward greater violence. The more the United States extends bombing to civilian infrastructure in Iran, the more Iran will strike civilian infrastructure in the countries where U.S. bases exist and from which the United States is attacking Iran. A final thought. I suppose one reason that Saudi Arabia may not have been attacked is that the Saudis continue to deny the use of bases on their territory to the United States. After all, the deputy foreign minister did go to Tehran to attend the funeral ceremonies for the late Ali Khamenei, which was a gesture of goodwill. And one has to assume that there is some sort of understanding between Saudi Arabia and Iran about how to limit the conflict between them. But clearly, the other Gulf Arabs have not reached such an accommodation with Iran and continue to allow the use of facilities on their territory to the United States in attacks on Iran. So this is a very dangerous situation. And I have to say, it also is politically, potentially very damaging to both the United States, Israel, and other countries, because basically the United States has reverted to enforcing the Iranian blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Oil is not coming out, gas is not coming out, ships are not getting in. We've now had an instance where the United States, not Iran, attacked a tanker. In this case, a tanker with a Curacao registration, which was going to Kharg Island presumably to load up on Iranian oil. And so basically there has now been a total cutoff of oil and gas exports from the Persian Gulf because the Houthis are now blockading the Red Sea, apparently. And the clock is ticking. The world is very short of key forms of fossil fuel. In the case of the United States, we are probably a week or two away from running out of sour crude from which to make jet fuel and diesel fuel, which are the backbone of our transportation system. And Donald Trump is approaching the midterm elections. I think last night's incoherent speech by Donald Trump was, in fact, an act of desperation on his part. He or his advisors understand that if he cannot stop the elections or pervert them, the November elections, he's toast. He will lose power, and in many ways, he's already lost power because the Congress, for the first time, is defying him. We've seen now votes to cut off aid to Israel that are unprecedented. They didn't succeed, but they were notable. And we have seen defiance of the president on his effort to federalize the election system. So this is he's under tremendous pressure, and he's not going to get anywhere by escalating against Iran.
There were some reports last night that Iran targeted the bridge between Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. That bridge is so important because it connects Saudi Arabia. So far, I haven't seen any footage or photo coming out showing that that bridge was hit. But it was mentioned last night. Multiple outlets reported on that Iran targeted that. But mostly, when I look at the Iranian targets, they're basically targeting the bases, the radars, HIMARS,
Right.
and all these weapons, even the fighter jets, shelters that they have, the fighters, the refueling tankers. They're mostly focused on the military equipment.
Yes, including high altitude persistent drones, which where apparently they've destroyed over 50 such drones in the course of this war. So this brings up the key question that Iran is firing episodically. I don't think it's significantly depleting its magazine depth, its trove of weaponry. But the United States is in a very precarious position because the weapon systems that it is deploying require not months, but years to be replaced. And so this is weakening the American position globally. The U.S. can keep it up in the Persian Gulf, but it comes at a strategic cost. So at some point, this is why I cite the example of the campaign against the Houthis, which basically had to end because it was costing too much. It was wear and tear on ships and personnel, and weaponry expended were accomplishing nothing. And I suspect we're going to see the same denouement unfolding of a result here, but it will take a while.
Yeah. The reason that the war somehow they decided to announce the ceasefire, in my opinion, was the way Iran was attacking Israel and hitting. You remember in the last days of the 40 days of war, they attacked Dimona. They hit some targets in Dimona. Then they announced the ceasefire to put an end to those attacks. But when it comes to the GCC countries, how important? How do you see the way? What is the point for these countries to say this is enough? We're getting to or as I said, one of the oil facilities was hit in Bahrain. We're going to see more and more. And when it goes to Qatar, it goes to other countries, Kuwait and Bahrain, maybe UAE, Jordan, all of them together. It's not about the country, it's about the oil market. It's about how these attacks going to influence the whole situation with the global market, and that Donald Trump is concerned of.
Well, you're asking the key question. What is the war termination mechanism here. Clearly, there's only one answer, and that is perhaps Saudi Arabia has come up with it, if it is indeed exempt from Iranian attack, which I'm not sure it is. There may still, I think there are probably still American forces at Al Kharj Air Base, Prince Sultan Air Base, south of Riyadh, and perhaps elsewhere. But the answer is get rid of the American bases, because they are the target and they are the justification for the assaults. And it's very interesting in this regard to hear American military figures, retired generals who commanded the Central Command, talking about moving all the bases to Israel, basically admitting that these bases are no longer defensible or usable, and they have a limited half-life. They will have to be vacated. But this is a big decision. Nobody in the Gulf wants to give up their connection to the United States. It's important to them. Their weaponry is American for the most part. They know that the United States is the only country that can project power to the region in case of emergency, as was demonstrated in the Gulf War of 1990 to 91, most definitively. So they don't want to break their ties with the United States. And the Trump administration is particularly difficult to deal with in this context because it has no coherent strategy. Its sensitivities are great. It is quite capable of having a temper tantrum, and has done so on numerous other contexts. How do you remove the bases without losing your connection to the United States? And how do you do this without a degree of political humiliation? Because, this basically is saying, okay, we accept that we have no alternative but to make peace and get along with Iran, much as we may dislike Iran. So one has to sympathize with the Gulf Arab governments. They face difficult choices. Easy.
No. Just moments ago, it was reported that Iran hits a target in the port of Duqm in Oman.
Yes.
And it's a military, that they said that it's military forces, and a vessel there was hit by Iranian missile. Iran is asked, go ahead.
Duqm is a port in Oman, on the Gulf of Oman, which has both fuel storage facilities and anchorages available to American ships. So it is a place, not a base. There are no American forces there on a permanent basis, but there are support facilities for the United States. And that is obviously what Iran has struck to convince the government of Oman, along with the others, that this level of entanglement with the United States is not only unacceptable, but basically too dangerous to be continued. I mean, that's the obvious objective here. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, the Iranian foreign minister mentioned that all of these countries are turning into American base. It's not about the bases inside these countries, but because the United States is moving the equipment, the forces, they're somehow in different places. That's why they're getting intelligence from these countries that they're moving around. They have to hit the targets in different part of these countries. This is the perception on the part of Iranians. And is that the recipe for a disaster happening in the region? Because as time goes by, they're going to hit more and more places in these countries.
Well, the U.S. is escalating, and Iran will counter-escalate. I mean, yes, this is a recipe for disaster for everyone. It's not going to accomplish anything. Iran, I think the Trump administration has no answer to achieving agreement with other countries other than bullying. And this is an effort to bully Iran into surrender. And Iran is not going to be bullied into surrender. And, the Iranian people will suffer as their government resists surrender. That is a fact. But I think, as we saw in the massive demonstrations during the ceremonies for the late Ayatollah, the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, the Iranian people are willing to suffer for the sake of their country's honor, prestige, security, and whether they like the current government or not is irrelevant. I go back, as I've mentioned before, there are many precedents. Think of the reaction of the Russian people to the invasion of their country by the Nazis. They didn't like Joseph Stalin and the Soviet system, but when their homeland was in danger, they rallied behind their leadership and basically defeated the Germans. So Iranians are no different. You attack a homeland. And by the way, I think this may very well apply in Cuba too. I'm sure many Cubans are not pleased by the performance of their government and the consequences of it. But they're Cubans. They're nationalists. They will defend Cuba. So I think this is not going, as I said, it's not going anywhere good. And if the United States actually carries out a ground attack of some sort, for example, attempts to seize Kharg Island, I think it will encounter fierce resistance. And I don't know what, war is always a gamble. You never know what the outcome is going to be. But Iran has 1 million men under arms, and the United States doesn't, certainly not in the region. Iran has a depth of weaponry stored away that it can draw on. It can go a lot longer, I think, than the United States can. We are projecting power 10,000 kilometers away. Iran is there. That is a tremendous advantage. The use of force when it is not accompanied by diplomacy seldom produces anything other than resistance. And I think that is the case here. And the United States needs to come up with a better approach. And I suspect where we're going to end up is that Iran will remain in control of the Strait of Hormuz. It will work out some arrangement with the Gulf Arabs on how to manage that in a way that is not too onerous. There will be fees for services provided. They will not be called tolls, but they will in effect be tolls. They will be passed on to the consumers, the refineries that receive the oil, and the facilities the companies that receive the gas from the Gulf. But it's going to take us a while to get there. And we'll see what the reaction of the Trump administration is to an energy crisis, which is impending. Iran is already in crisis. The United States has yet to feel the results. There's another element here, and that is Iran has never reciprocated the Israeli and American program of assassination. But now it threatens to do so. And, it may be that people in Tehran are now arguing that, well, the only way to get rid of the United States is to do to the United States what they are doing to Iran, namely assassinations, sabotage, and so forth and so on. And I think this is a very dangerous game.